I suck at intros, so you're going to just have to settle for this one. Hi, I'm an artist by day, an author by night, and a hyperfixated autistic by Crackhead Hours. It is Crackhead Hours. And a Wesker! Oh yeah,
I think Audie just bit her lip.
I'm Nicolas Cage.
I'm Nicolas Cage, bitch.
Nicolas Cage, bitch.
Nicolas Cage, bitch.
I
Finger your
personally
asshole.
know that Wesker.
Since oldest living memory, the dungeon gate has stood in the heart of the old wood. Its doorway leads to infinite possibility, to subterranean lands fabled in stories and myths. Many adventurers have passed over that ancient threshold, some to find fame, glory, and wealth beyond telling, and others never to return. The town of Grove has ever been the safe haven at the dungeon's mouth, a watering hole and resting place for weary adventurers. Here great tales are told by the inn's fire, journeys are planned, and legacies are made. The minstrels sing of the great feats of heroes long gone, and statues ring the square, a testament to their deeds. After traveling many hard and dusty days, you and your faithful companion arrive at last in the fabled forest town, which waits beneath the long shadow of the gate. Within these walls lies the path to infinite adventure. It is here that you will test your worth, and perhaps find fortune and glory along the way. It is here that you will determine your fate.
Fate. A game made for the dungeon crawler enthusiasts of the 2000s and for the 2000s kids who were put in front of it to keep them busy while their parents were off to get packets of cigarettes and milk down at the local gas station. I grew up with this game, and I was a 2000s kid who was pretty sheltered. The internet was just getting truly started, and children that were my age didn't have much to do, especially if you lived out in the middle of nowhere. Fate was one of those games your parents could sit you down in front of and come back hours later to see you hadn't moved. Fate was made by Wild Tangent, a company known for their shoddy trial periods and lovable shades wearing Hawaiian shirt wearing polar bear that you can shoot bowling pins at, and doing the occasional golf with, things that the classic dad would be seen doing. Perfect dad material, by the way. Fate was near and dear to my heart as a kid. Made 4 years after RuneScape by Jagex. RuneScape brought something to the fold of internet games that not many had fully developed on or really experimented with. Dungeon exploration in a medieval setting. RuneScape had a more or less open-ish world to explore, but never really had that niche of dungeon crawler that made you feel like you were deep in the bowels of a place you could truly get your shit wrecked in. Enter Fate. A single-player fantasy RPG dungeon crawler with a main game and 3 expansion versions I never had the pleasure of playing. Judging from videos I've seen, they pretty much are just expansions that build upon the previous iteration, i.e. through the offspring of the original hero. The graphics get slightly better and a little worse at times as the games went on, with all of them still holding the familiar angular appearance that we all know and loved from the original Fate. But this video isn't about the expansions. Or I guess we can call them sequels? Sequels. Yeah, sequels works. This is about the original 2005 Fate game that I, and many like myself, grew up with. I recently actually revisited Fate and played it for a few good hours, reliving the nostalgia that had made me buy the game when I noticed it was on Steam. Thank you, Valve, by the way, for putting Fate on your platform. My inner child is crying tears of joy as we speak. There isn't much to talk about Fate. Each floor is different with some repeats in between, with the main quest of reaching floor 40 to 52. I say 40 to 52 because it depends on which version you have for the so-called final boss to appear. It is kind of a little weird considering the game itself mentions that the final boss that you have to fight for the main plot or whatever is like located on floor 43 or 48. I can't remember exactly. In Fate, you get to explore these different floors riddled with higher level enemies as you descend further and further and further into the dungeon. And if you don't have high enough equipment, or you and your pet aren't leveled high enough, you will get your shit kicked in. I actually wasted a good chunk of coin fighting just one boss for a quest because he was higher leveled than me and he could summon little skeleton ads regardless of where he was in the dungeon. Oh yeah, if you thought you could pull him away from the skeletons, think again. The minute you enter combat with him, your pet will be kicked down into particle sand and your ass is next. There's something about having a dungeon crawler game with a companion pet that just itches a part of my brain that makes me happy. Not to mention, if your pet has no health, they basically don't die. But they will leave you behind and flee off into the sunset if you don't heal them. Fate has so many different aspects that, much like RuneScape, you will have to multi-class. This isn't Dark Souls or Elden Ring where you can make a build and roll with it. No, you will be switching between magic and physical damage. So when you put your points into your character, much like Elden Ring, the first thing that most players will want to focus on is vitality. More health equals more time in the dungeon, more time in the dungeon equals more experience equals more points put into the different windows you have, and more loot to sell. Speaking of loot, loot is one of the many money makers in this game. Besides traversing through a dungeon, picking coins up, and slaying monsters, you and your pet have separate inventories, which can be a good thing, but it's best to map out what you want your pet to have and what you want to have. Fish in the game, oh yeah, by the way, there's fishing in the game, gives your pet the ability to shapeshift into any dungeon crawler creature that is on the numerous levels of the dungeon itself. Each fish will tell you what your pet will turn into, the stats, and how long they will stay as that shapeshifted creature, with it ranging from 2 minutes to permanent. I haven't gotten too far in the game since refining it years later, but from what I can tell, the only animal your pet will stay permanently as is one of the spiders. So if you have arachnophobia like me and don't like that, then keep stocked up on different kinds of fish. But that probably won't help you since on some of the levels there are giant spiders. So, have fun! Fishing in this game is like gambling, by the way. You throw your line in and most of the time you are leaving broke as my wallet when leaving a bookstore. Other times you get lucky and catch an occasional fish, and for my achievement hunters out there, each expansion, including the first Fate game, all have achievements. Each one has 10. And you know what every single one of them has? At least one achievement that will have you tearing your hair out. If you enjoy fishing and want to deal with feeling yourself progressively age each time you cast a line and pull it up with nothing, then you'll enjoy trying to get the "I guess you were hungry" achievement for catching all 20 types of fish. I don't know if I'll even want to get that far, but I enjoy dungeon crawlers and I enjoy fantasy games, so we'll just have to see. Some levels of the dungeon will also have fishing spots, so don't only fish at the one spot in Grove unless you are out of fish and don't feel like wasting money on getting them. Speaking of levels and fishing, sometimes you will come across merchants on the levels, with only 2 of the main copy and pasted showing up being one of the merchants from town that sounds kind of like an earlier version of RE4 Merchant.
Come closer. I might be able to cut you a deal.
Got something that might interest you.
And a penguin with a Lord Farquaad hat. Love him. He's adorable. Besides that, is Fate worth revisiting after about 10 to 20 years later? If you feel like wanting to relive your childhood, then I think so. It's an old game, so if you aren't into it within the first half hour or so, then the game probably isn't for you. It's reminiscent of the early Baldur's Gate games of point and click with an overhead camera, and not a lot of people are into that, and I am unfortunately one of those people, but I chose to look past it for the sake of reliving nostalgia. So is Fate for you, or is it not for you? that is entirely up to you. The first game is about $8 on Steam, and the main bundle that has the first game and its expansions are pretty much roughly 20-ish bucks. For how the game is, with it being pretty much the original one, and with how small of a game it is, it's worth the price, I think, but that is completely up to you if you want to try it out or not. That'll do it for this rambling video, by the way. If you enjoyed this kind of barely a deep dive thing, I was and am hopefully planning to make a book review in the future, revisiting a book that I hated and ended up buying, thinking maybe it isn't as bad as I remember, but time will only tell with that one, because it will take me a while to write that script and read it and make several notes. Needless to say, that one won't be here for a while, until I'm done writing the script and all of that good stuff. Regardless, I'm your local hyperfixated crackhead, and I'll see you next time. Bye. You don't want Nemesis to dab you up in the end.
Yeah. I don't want him to track my stars account.